Welcome back to Silent Sales Machine Radio. We are your co-hosts. I'm Brian.
And I'm Robin Joy.
And this is Coach's Corner.
Hi, everybody.
You sound a little under the weather here, Robin.
I've got a little bit of a cold. Sorry, I'm going to let you do the heavy lifting today.
Okay. Yeah,
listen to you.
It's been going around. I think it started with one of the grandkids to the daughter-in-law to me to you. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, the son got it. Mm-hmm. It was like it's been going around. Passing it around. Hopefully, this is the last of it. Thankfully, it hasn't been that debilitating. Just like your normal style of cold. Maybe sounds worse than it is. But how many boxes of tissues have we gone through this last couple of weeks? Yeah, more than a few. Yeah. Well, we like to address questions. Sometimes these questions come from our coaching clients. Sometimes they come from the Kickstart participants. Sometimes they come from people who go to our workshop. This week, we were talking about the challenges that some of your Kickstart students have, which is like everyone thinks they need to find a profitable ASIN to sell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. It's tough in the beginning because when you open up your seller account and you haven't sold anything before, you're very restricted, and there's good reason for that. It actually does work in our favor. As time goes by, we learn to appreciate this, but Amazon needs to kind of build some trust with you. Mm-hmm. They need to know that you're a real person and you're not selling counterfeit goods and you're not using some, pseudonym to cover up nefarious things. They need to know that you understand what you're doing. You've been around a little bit enough to help their customers have a good experience. That's what they're interested in.
Yep.
So they limit you pretty tight.
Yep.
So that makes it difficult to find ASINs to test.
But all the more reason that I think what you are teaching them is not necessarily for all geared towards finding profitable ASINs, because you don't know if an ASIN is profitable
unless you test it,
until you actually sell it, and then see what is do the math on it and see what comes to light, right? Or if what falls to the bottom line,
right?
But we're guiding through whether it's Kickstart, coaching, even here on this podcast and the workshop. Our goal is to guide clients to understand how to leverage Keepa, the pricing history, with a focus on capital protection instead of profit prediction. There's a big difference
there
here,
is a big difference there. Yeah, I like the way you said that. We're looking to protect our capital when we test. We won't test as many as we can because theoretically each of those tests is a sale, whether we make any money or not. And that's how we build that trust with Amazon, so that they'll open up those other brands and categories for us that might be more profitable for us. So if we test, we get a sale. The more sales we get, the better off we are with Amazon, as long as they're successful transactions, of course.
Yeah.
So Keepa, though, can be kind of, we use it in a way that, how do I want to say it? If we just look for history, we can find pricing history in Keepa. It doesn't tell us what sold. It doesn't tell us how many sold. It doesn't tell us what they sold for. We just see pricing history.
Yep.
And we don't see all of the pricing history. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
We do not see all of the pricing history. Usually the lowest price that day, but we know that's going up and down, and it's at one particular area. We know about the multidimensional buy box. Jump in anytime.
Yeah. No, I just was like, the part I think is important, and I'm slow to come around sometimes, as I've admitted here recently. But because you've said a long time ago, flip the script, right? We're going to flip the script on the way we use Keepa to evaluate listings. So we're not looking for example, how much do I need to buy it for in order to make a profit? We are looking at how much do I need to sell it for to make a profit.
Right.
Okay.
The cost of the cost. It costs me what it costs me, and I can't do a whole lot about that.
Right. Right. Especially when you're first starting out. It's not like you're going to go take down all these wholesale accounts and get, deep discount, buying opportunities and stuff like that.
And even if you do, that's a huge risk.
Oh, sure. I mean, look at just the amount of items that you have to buy as a result. You're buying in cases and pallets and, by the gross and that kind of stuff.
And then hoping that one of those, that's not a good place to start.
It doesn't keep with the low risk model, right? That increases your risk.
Yes.
Which is ultimately a business decision for you. But just to get back to where I was going with this is you said like flip the script. So instead of focusing on how much do I need to buy it for, focus on how much do I need to sell it for, assuming that, the cost is the cost. So if that's the case, then instead of looking about how much profit can you make, it just makes sense to flip that script too and say capital protection instead of profit prediction is the way that we use Keepa.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it a lot too.
Yeah. I want to make clear, we don't think wholesale is a bad strategy.
No,
it's
not
not
at
a
all.
great place to start.
Especially for your Kickstart students, right?
Right, exactly.
When you haven't even sent in one item yet, that's not the time to go get wholesale accounts.
Right. That's right.
We heard this from a podcast episode fairly recently with Ken McAllister, who kind of started that way.
Yeah.
And then, about a year later, he's circling back to it because now he understands that it makes sense. He's got a little more appetite for risk, things like that.
Yep. And that's why we try to start people with the Replens FBA business, selling on existing listings.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, anything else you want to say on that? I thought it was a great question, and your answer is not, well, just keep looking. Your answer is flip the script. Instead of looking at how much profit, let's look at ones you have capital protection on.
See if I can say that one more way. I see in history usually lowest prices in one area of what prices have been over time.
Yep.
I don't know how high the prices have been during those days. This is where I can set this is probably as low as I'll have to go, but I don't know how high things have been priced or sold given that history. I don't know that until I test it.
Yep.
So if I needed to sell more than what that Keepa historically pricing is showing, there may be more there, but I have to test it to find out. Yeah.
Not to get too far off track and talk about this other podcast, but we've all experienced this. And there was another recent podcast guest who said the same thing. Like, I'm making sales. I go back and look at the Keepa chart, and my sales aren't even on there.
Yep.
Right? We experience this all the time with our above the buy box strategy. Do we sell everything above the buy box? No. But we've got a percentage of items that sell above the buy box.
When we're testing, we almost always test above, regardless of the buy box.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But anyway, the point is you can experience sales at prices that never get documented. Okay. So if we set that as the premise, like, okay, if we know that that Keepa is not capturing all the sales, or the price points, then the only way we will know if we can do better than that is to test it.
Exactly.
And it's just a test. Again, we're not buying a pallet full and trying to sell it above the buy box. We're buying a handful of units.
To see if we can sell it at the price we need it to be, whether that's buy box or more or less.
Yep.
It can be any price, regardless of the buy box, I like to say.
That's right.
Yeah. So Keepa does give us history, but it's not all the history.
That's right. And not all the data points, as overwhelming as Keepa can be, all the data points that it has, it doesn't have everything, right? Only Amazon has everything.
Only Amazon has everything, and they're not sharing on a lot of that.
They do share some. There's some things you can subscribe to or gain via the API. Keepa scrapes a lot of data off of the sites right from Amazon. So that's like one of the reasons that I consider Keepa a source of truth is that they're getting their information directly from Amazon.
Right.
And so, I don't have to go to Amazon's API to get a lot of that information or collect all the data myself or spend an hour and a half analyzing a single listing. Keepa puts it all together like in a snapshot for me, right? Not all of it, but a lot of it.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Well, let's change gears a little bit here.
Okay.
I saw a post from Jim Cockrum this morning or last night, I can't remember, where he was talking about the standard deviation of the buy box. Yeah, it's getting really geeky when you're starting to talk about standard deviation of the buy box when you're using the Keepa product finder.
How often the buy box is...
The price changes on the buy box, right? Because he had posted an image of a highly volatile listing, what appeared to be a highly volatile listing, right?
Yes.
And I think this is just we've been saying this for a while, and this community has been saying this for a while. This community revolutionizes a lot of things. But the point I'm trying to make with this is that those listings that have a nice steady buy box,
They're no longer the ones I'm looking for, really.
I'm much less interested in those. As long as I have capital protection, I love when that buy box is jumping all around. And one of the ways that you can find that is using Keepa and what Jim posted about that standard deviation of the buy box.
Right,
metric.
which is now in the Keepa Product Finder.
Which is now in Keepa Product Finder, exactly.
Based on Jim's request.
Yes,
so.
right. It was. I think you're right. It was his request to put it in there. So you can find those listings. And I'm not going to give you the tutorial on this podcast, but go into the Keepa Product Finder and hover over the little question mark in there, and you'll get some details on exactly what that means, and then potentially how to put it to use. You know, we always say this, I know this is a bit off script, but we always say we always ask the question when you find something or when someone has an idea, how do you do that in Keepa?
Yes.
And I just want to give everyone a quick tip here. If you come across a listing that is like that, where it's like highly volatile or has some attributes that you like or are interesting to you or you want to try and replicate that, the best way to do that is to look at all the metrics in all the Keepa fields when you're pulling up an ASIN on the Keepa Product Finder. Now, the way you do this, you may have to enable some columns, and I'm one of those who like eliminates a lot of the columns because it's noise, but you might have to add some of those columns back in, and then you can see the value in those columns. When you know what the value in that field looks like on one of those crazy looking listings, then you can go and set a filter to look more like that and identify more of those types of listings, right? This is the key thing when you're first starting out and you're starting to scale. It's like, how do I find more ASINs like this, right? And whether that's brand, whether that's a type of product, whether it's in a certain category, or whether it has certain attributes about that listing, the type of listing, you can replicate a lot of that in Keepa.
That's true. And we have created a course, so nobody gets confused here. If you are a member of the Proven Amazon course, if you're not, you should be. Go get it. Go get it. So much great stuff there. We just put in a few months ago a new course called Keepa 360 that explains a lot of what you're just talking about right now, right?
Yep.
Okay. So that's where you get more information on that. I think to reiterate the point, though, we are not necessarily looking for that steady buy box anymore. We're looking for something more volatile, something that we can do more with that shows us it's more than just what is the lowest price.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, you may see people, more experienced sellers, posting Keepa charts like this, like Jim does. And he may or may not have capital protection, but you have to keep in mind that Jim's been doing this for decades, has a higher risk tolerance than many people. He's not brand new. He understands a lot of what, most of what's going on there. And so when he may take the obvious choice to, maybe I don't have capital protection, but I feel like I'm going to take a chance on this because given my experience, I see what's going to happen here.
Yeah,
right?
and a lot of sellers will come to that point. Once they get a foundation built, and they're not taking money out of their pockets anymore, then it's much easier to take a few more risks, test some more strategies.
When your business is funding itself.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I love it. Well, imagine this. Okay. Imagine a world where every ASIN. Ooh, should I put on my movie announcer voice? Imagine a world. Actually, we were doing this. There's a relatively new show out. I say new show like in the last 6-9 months. But it's one of the most creative show titles we've ever seen. Yeah. Yes. Murder in a small town. Like we've never watched it. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It's just hilarious because it's like the generic term for all murder mystery shows. Yeah. Murder in a small town. We were kind of talking about a skit. Like, how do we come up with the title for this? Well, what is the show about? If you're like the producer or you're at work at the network, what is the show about? Oh, it's somebody gets murdered. It's about a murder in a small town. Well, where does this take place? Oh, the small town in whatever, any town USA. All right. Well, let's call it, whatever gone wrong in Seattle. Well, no, that's too close to this other show. Okay. And eventually you just keep talking. Okay, we'll just call it murder in a small town. Oh, but then we get the radio voice guy on and it sounds much better. Murder in a small town. Yeah. All right. We have gotten completely off the subject. Okay. Imagine this. Go back to imagine this. Imagine a world where every ASIN that you looked at You are approved to sell. Mm-hmm. You have capital protection. Mm-hmm. You have...
Meaning your worst case scenario, no guarantees, but your worst case scenario looks like you'll at least break even.
Yeah, right.
Capital protection.
Yeah. So you're approved to sell it. Worst case scenario is you break even. It has a track record of meeting or exceeding your minimum profit target. Mm-hmm. This is like, if we could do this in Keepa, this is kind of what we do in Keepa with the filters that are available to us, but we miss out on all the other things because Keepa doesn't know how much our product costs. Keepa doesn't know, actually, it is plugged into our Amazon account, but when we're pulling a list from Keepa using the product finder, it's not just returning results that we're approved to sell. It returns all the results.
Right. It doesn't know if we're approved to sell. It doesn't know if how much it cost us. Uh-huh. It doesn't know
if we have a potential for profit.
Right.
But what if it did?
What if it did?
Wouldn't that be incredible? What if you could go to a system that you could put in your criteria, say, show me all the ASINs where, like, this goes back to that car commercial, like Auto Trader.
Oh yeah.
Which, we used a few years ago at a Proven conference. For those of you who've been around for a while, you know what I'm talking about. Like in the .com.
I want a car.
Boom.
I want a red car.
I want a car. Red car.
I want automatic transmission.
Automatic, convertible, two doors. Yeah. It starts out with like, I want a car. There's like 1 billion cars.
Yeah.
Red car, and then it shrinks down to just the red cars, and then the 2 doors, and then the convertibles, and then the automatics, and then
all of a sudden you have exactly the car you want.
Exactly the car that you want, and you have your choice theoretically of a handful of cars, right? Well, what if you could do that with ASINs? Mm-hmm. I want an ASIN that I'm approved to sell. Mm-hmm. Shrinks it up. I want an ASIN that has, worst case, I'm going to get my money back, no guarantees. Shrinks it still. I want an ASIN that looks like it has 30%. It's got a track record of 30% or more or better ROI for the last 90 days.
Because I've sold it for that.
No, or you have, or just the buy box says, based on where your cost is, it's done minimum whatever percent ROI.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's it's evidence of.
Okay.
Okay. Don't get me off track now.
Okay. Keep going.
What if you had that system?
Yeah, that would be pretty handy.
Well, let me just say, it's out there. It exists. This system is called 3P Mercury. Mm-hmm. 3P Mercury has a function in there called the buy list where you can upload thousands of ASINs. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's got a way to, when you're importing those ASINs into the system, to exclude the ones that you're not already approved to sell. Mm-hmm. Exclude anything that's hazmat if you're not in the hazmat program, like us. Even though we've been on the list for years, can't get in the hazmat program.
But all of the clients we work with, coaching clients we work one-on-one, they're all getting, I'm hazmat approved. I've been doing this for 2 weeks. I'm having anyway.
You can remove all the meltable items because here we're only about 5 weeks away from meltables becoming restricted again, right? You can do all of that when you're uploading your leads into 3P Mercury. And these leads can be leads that you're getting from a leads list that hopefully you're not buying from right now, that you're going to shop from later on. These leads can be from a website where you've collected like the supplier price, the supplier product, a link to the supplier site, all that kind of stuff, or wherever you get your leads. Again, we don't care.
But doesn't it have to match up to an ASIN?
Oh, it does. Yeah, it needs to match up to an ASIN.
So a viable ASIN, good ASIN with a good source,
a good listing with a good source, viable ASIN. Right, that's what we like. Yeah. So if we can find a reliable source and a listing that passes what we call our pre-flight inspection, then we can create a viable ASIN. So if you could just upload thousands of viable ASINs into your own Keepa. And then turn on a couple of filters and have it show you the ones that you're approved to sell. Worst case scenario, you get your money back, all your money back, and there's a evidence of a certain profit potential. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be amazing.
That's why I'm so excited about what is going on with 3P Mercury. Mm-hmm. Now, I did a webinar last week on this, like on Wednesday night, and I went through kind of my process in about 15 or 20 minutes to show the power of this. Mm-hmm. But the more I use it, and it's been a couple of months at this point, I'm just sort of kicking myself that I didn't, really latch onto this in the early days, but no regrets, right? But the power of this is incredible. I love it so much. Just that I can go upload by the thousands viable ASINs, and then turn on a few filters and get a list of ASINs that I should consider testing.
Now, it doesn't create the viable ASINs for you.
No.
You find the viable ASINs.
This is true.
Then you have several different ways to do that.
Yeah.
And put them all in there, and then you can just search that database. It's almost like it takes a cut out of Amazon. Just give me the things that I want to look at, not all the other ASINs.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Right. Just the ones that I should be paying attention to.
And I have sources for.
Oh, and yeah, that's exactly it. Oh, and I already have a source for it.
Because I can get those ASINs from Keepa, but I don't have a source, so I need the other side of it. Then I need to be able to dig into that database anytime I want to.
You know, we, as coaches and as someone who's been in the comfort zone of manual sourcing for so long, one of the biggest complaints we hear from newer sellers is, how do I find a source? Doesn't it seem like a real pain if I'm starting with Amazon to go track down a source? And that's one way to do it. I mean, you can always start with Amazon and then go try and find a source. Or you can flip the script on it and start with the source and see if that listing exists or that product exists on Amazon. It's another good way to do it. Or maybe the best way is to have a way to capture all of the matching ASINs from a source that you already know, love, and trust, import that into a system like 3P Mercury, turn on your Keepa-like filters, and away you go.
Does it give you the ASINs then if you've got the sources?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, 3P doesn't do that yet.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. You would need some of the tool. So right now there's several intermediary tools that would be required in order to get it there. But what to me, it seems no brainer. So it's going to cost me $50 a month for the tool that's going to match up the source with the ASINs to create viable ASINs for me? Okay. Now, caveat or disclaimer, I will say the matching is not always perfect. So, for example...
And you're talking about in these other tools, not 3P.
Yeah, not 3P Mercury. The other tools that do the matching for you. It's not always perfect, but like the kind of mistakes or the mismatches that I've been coming across are more related to, the brand on the listing is wrong. Yeah. Well, the tool that you're using to do that, it doesn't look at the brand on the listing. It's not smart enough to do that.
That takes eyeballs, yeah.
Yeah, this is the last mile that we always talk about, that bridging the gap that you have to do. But if the majority of everything you're putting in there is a match and it is correct, and all you have to do is quality check and kick out the ones that happen to not be right, which is not very many, by the way, then your sourcing process just becomes so much easier. So much easier. I'm pretty fired up about it.
I can tell. Yeah, that's very exciting.
Well, so just if you haven't already jumped into 3P Mercury, I would encourage you to at least go take a look at it right now. I don't know how long it's going to be this way, but right now you can sign up for the lowest cost tier, but get all the benefits from the highest cost tier. And this is only going to be in place until the Walmart rollout is finalized. And I don't know exactly when that's going to be. It could already be done by the time this comes out, but run, don't walk. Okay. So I mentioned this earlier. We listened to a podcast this week on this channel from someone who happened to be a current coaching client of ours. And he was talking about he talked about so many good things in there.
Yeah, he had a great podcast.
Yeah, Ken did a great job. Go listen to the Ken McAllister interview. I don't know what number it is off the top of my head, but what a shining example of how you can find success here in the Amazon space. But what he talked about that I wanted to, I wish that Jim had sort of taken him off to the side and had a little what do they call that? Sidebar about it, right? So I thought, well, let's put a sidebar in our own episode about it. Okay. And that is momentum. Okay. You know, have you ever seen like those domino things where like you click over one domino and then it just goes around on this path and knocks a bunch of other things over, and, you know, all kinds of amazing things happen just from clicking that one domino? Yeah. It's called momentum. The fact that one domino, when it clicks over and goes into the second one, it's transferring that energy into the second domino. And then the energy gets transferred into the third domino from the first two dominoes. And this gradually builds over time. And pretty soon the domino that's, 100 down the lane can do amazing things, right? This is one of the things that Ken was talking about when he was talking about consistency in his business. He said, Brian told me to send a shipment every week, so I did. And what happened? one of the shipments or two of the shipments got lost. And I was concerned about that for a second, but then I didn't have that much time to be concerned about it because I had been sending shipments every single week. And I had other businesses to pay. I had other things to pay attention to, right? Other things to go manage my pricing on, reorder on. I was plenty busy with what was going on because I'd put in a shipment every single week. And that momentum of managing that he gained at that point in the process, I don't know how far in he was at that point. Let's call it 12 weeks, right? He had 12 weekly shipments and in some cases weeks with multiple shipments going in. And so the importance of that one shipment that got mishandled was much smaller or much
less of an impact.
Much less of an impact and much lower on his priority list. And ultimately, as happens 99% of the time, the shipment showed up, right? And it went into his inventory and he sold it. So what I'm glad about is he didn't spend a whole lot of time calling, hold on, time out, like hold the presses.
Yeah, stop everything.
We better stop everything and see what's going on with this one thing. And this is the trust that we run into with so many new sellers who are like, we're trying to encourage them to like, don't stop and look at your results. It's like the football player who is, returning a kickoff or an interception or whatever, and then looks up at the big screen to see himself and then he gets tackled. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
or like the sprinters, they actually can look up at the big screen when they're running down the, the 100-yard or 200-yard or whatever meter, I should say. Oh, gosh, dating myself. Meter races. And they can look up the big screen and see how much separation there is. And sometimes they get past. And then they forget what they're doing. Like, don't be that person, right? Yeah. Trust the process. Just know that it is going to get you where you need to go.
You had a plan.
Yes.
You worked your plan.
Yeah.
Keep going down the road of your plan. There's a time to check on your results in your plan usually. So
yes.
If there's not, there should be.
Right. Yeah. Monthly.
Yeah.
Weekly, quarterly. Right. And if you want to set aside some time to do that outside of your normal business activities, sourcing, shopping, prepping, shipping.
Don't make everything stop for that.
Exactly. And Ken didn't, and he's got amazing momentum going right now as a result.
This is a person who has a very good understanding of business to start with. So he was able to implement some things that he knew inherently. Everybody has their own history and
their own
superpowers.
They bring with them,
that they bring with them. And sometimes that's not an understanding of business, but that's a source that nobody else has, or that's the ability to have, more time, this ability to enjoy working, quietly for a while. I mean, it can be so many things for so many people, but I think it was Larry Pruitt that said, find your superpower and use it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody has something, probably more than one thing, and you probably don't even realize it.
Okay, well, I know we're going to keep it a little shorter today. Actually, here we are about 30 minutes in already. But we'll get to the quote for today.
Yes, this week. Got a quote for us?
I do.
Sorry, I'm off the mark.
Yeah.
Brian, do you have a quote for us today?
Yes, I do have a quote for us. All right. This quote comes to us from Constance Friday. The quote goes like this: greatness doesn't come from trying to achieve the possible. It wouldn't be great.
It wouldn't be great if it's normal. Yeah, a normal thing to do. Greatness comes from doing those things that nobody does.
Or nobody believes can be done. Yeah. We go back to the Roger Bannister 4-minute mile. Today,
it's a great example.
Most sprinters can, mile runners do less than 4-minute mile. It's not great anymore. So, but
when Roger Bannister did it, it was the first time, and that was incredible.
So if you're out to achieve greatness, and I think everyone should be. Yeah. Don't do something that's already been done, right? Try and raise that bar and do something.
Try and raise the bar, yeah. And in order to get there, you got to do a lot of things that have already been done.
At the same time, there's a you don't have to be great to be successful. You know what I mean? Like I also don't want to make it seem like, you have to do these amazing things to be considered successful, because I don't think that's the case.
No, I don't think that's the case at all.
But yeah, consistency.
I think success is more common than we allow for, and usually it's our own selves that can't see our own success.
Well, that's a good point. Like greatness is relative. It's it might not be great for Elon Musk or Bill Gates or whatever, but it can
to have $100,000 a year.
To have have a 6-figure year, selling something, but it can be great for us.
Yeah.
It can absolutely be great for us.
Absolutely.
Well, how do you start down that path of greatness when you are selling on Amazon?
You got to go find some ASINs and test them. That's what you got to do.
Let's go test some more ASINs.
Let's go test some more ASINs.
Thanks for hanging in there, Rob and Joy.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. Before I let you go, though, let's spend a couple minutes with my good friend, Jeff Schick. He jumps on here once a week or so with some great Amazon policy and legal insights to help us stay on the straight and narrow with our business. Jeff, what do you got for us today, man?
So one of the big questions we've been having from sellers is whether they're big enough to sign up for our legal retainer. And so I wanted to just have a frank discussion about it, because sometimes sellers will come to us and they'll say, well, I really feel like I need your help, but I don't think that my business is big enough to afford it yet. And then they say, so what's the size that we should be when we should sign up for you? And the answer is, what's the size? It really comes down to is, if you're running a real business or if you're running a hobby. Like if you're running a hobby, then the answer is probably, it could be never, right? Because you don't really care about it. But if you're trying to build a real business, the things that we work with our clients on, forming LLCs, helping them with, trademarks, helping them with the, protecting against suspensions, interpreting policy, helping them understand what Amazon's expectations are. Those are all things that we help sellers of all sizes with, that arguably could be more important for sellers that are just starting up, or just as important for sellers starting up as they are for large established sellers, because those are all the building block, fundamentals of starting a successful e-commerce business.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is, it's not a matter of can I afford these things, and it's just a few dollars a day. It's not a matter of can I afford this or not. It's more almost like, can I afford not to if I'm getting a real business?
Right.
Yeah, you're not too small if you're serious about your business.
Exactly. And so that's to say, we work with sellers of all sizes. I have one seller that's been a client of mine for 2 years now. He's not sold a single product yet because he's just been stuck in the analysis paralysis. But he schedules calls with us, with our team, to ask questions. Hey, I'm thinking about buying this product. Should I buy it? And wants to just know, whether it complies with policy and whatnot. We actually saved him because he had unfortunately been subjected to an ad for a done-for-you automation company.
Yeah.
And so he was literally one or two clicks away from electronically signing the agreement, because he had gone through the sales process and thought it sounded so good. And so, we work with sellers that are truly, beginners starting at zero. We've also got sellers that, are an Amazon, top 100 seller list. So we really have worked with sellers of all sizes across a variety of issues. And so there's really no one's too big or too small for getting proper help.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know our team uses you guys a lot. We run everything from little scenarios to big decisions past you. And you've certainly steered us clear of some big mistakes and educated us on some things we were doing that we shouldn't have been. Yeah, it's very much worth a few dollars a day to get Jeff and his team on your side, no matter what size you are. Go to jeffschick.com, SCHICK, and sign up for the retainer service. You guys cover so many different services for a few dollars a day. And I appreciate you, man. You're doing a great job for us. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks for trusting us.
Hey, well, let's do this again next week. What do you say?
Sounds good.
All right, man. Good to see you. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to this great episode of Silent Sales Machine Radio. We have a very quick announcement that you don't want to miss right now.
Does anyone out there ever feel uncertain when choosing an ASIN to test? Like, it's ambiguous and you're not really sure.
Yeah, or like you have to stand on one leg on the second Tuesday of the first week of the month if the moon is in retrograde.
Right. And hold your mouth right. You got to remember to hold your mouth right. Then you might possibly
consider testing that ASIN someday, maybe.
Right. Sometimes Keepa seems overwhelming. Like it's got so many data points. What if I'm missing something? I'm afraid I'm missing something, so I don't want to pull the trigger. Right?
Yes. Well, we host a 2-day workshop that will demystify the process of building a predictable, scalable, and sustainable book of business on Amazon.
Yeah, it starts with a pre-flight inspection of a listing. So you can answer the question, should I go any further with this ASIN or do I need to move on?
If you get past that, we're going to show you how to apply 3 simple yes or no questions that will help you decide whether to pull the trigger or not.
Yeah.
You know, like, is this even a good ASIN to test?
Right. And if you do decide to test it, we'll help you implement a framework for a 4-week testing process. And this process is clear and methodical, and it'll tell you whether you should replenish that ASIN or not.
Now, in these 2 days, we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to practice how to apply these critical concepts together. It's intense, it's focused, and it's packed with frameworks, quizzes, and actionable information that really is going to stack the deck in your favor when finding your first 100 replenishable ASINs.
Or your next 100 replenishable ASINs.
Yes, I love it.
Yes. You're going to leave with a roadmap to create your foundational book of business over the next few months.
Our next workshop is May 27th and 28th in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, but seating is limited. It's an intimate setting, but you'll be able to ask all of your questions, plus you'll hear all the questions of the other attendees.
Yeah, this is fun, dynamic, educational. It's a great experience where you will get to meet and work with other people who are doing the same things that you are with similar goals. Mm-hmm. Imagine how you would feel when you get back home after the workshop and you're feeling transformed from unsure to certain, from cautious to confident, from overwhelmed to empowered.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to stand on one leg anymore and hold your mouth right. Just
Right.
making sure, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So if you would like to feel that way, go to provenamazoncourse.com/100. That's provenamazoncourse.com/100. And we look forward to seeing you there because we're inspired by the accomplishments of others.
We're passionate about helping others reach their goals.
And we're committed to sharing the keys to success that have been shared with us.